What if I told you that in one of the richest countries on Earth, millions of older people are quietly being pushed toward homelessness, not by war, not by natural disaster, but by a system that's slowly collapsing beneath them? Right now, Australian seniors are losing their homes at the fastest rate ever recorded, even after doing everything they were told, working hard, paying taxes, and playing by the rules. Here's the disturbing part. This crisis isn't sudden. It's been building in plain sight. Rents are exploding, pensions are falling behind, and retirement savings are vanishing faster than expected. Yet when older Australians ask for help, they're often met with silence, long wait lists, or policies that simply don't apply to them anymore. And if you think this doesn't affect you, think again, because what's happening to today's seniors is a warning. Stay with me, because the reasons behind this crisis may shock you, and they could shape your future too.
Number 1. Housing costs are outrunning retirement income. For decades, Australian seniors were told a simple story: work hard, save steadily, retire safely. But that promise is now breaking down. Housing costs across Australia have risen at a pace that retirement incomes simply cannot match. Rents have surged by double digits in many areas, while pensions and fixed retirement payments increase slowly, if at all. For seniors who don't own a home outright, this creates an impossible gap. Every year, a larger share of their income is swallowed by rent, leaving less for food, healthcare, and basic living expenses. This isn't poor planning, it's a math problem that no amount of budgeting can fix. What makes this worse is that retirement income is designed to be predictable, while housing costs are anything but. A senior might plan their finances carefully, only to face a sudden rent increase of hundreds of dollars a month. Unlike younger workers, retirees can't just work overtime or ask for a raise. Their income is mostly locked in. Studies show that even small, repeated rent increases can push older renters from stability into financial freefall within a few years. Once savings are used to cover rent, there's no safety net left. The real danger is how quietly this happens. Seniors don't suddenly become homeless overnight. First, they cut back on essentials. Then they stop heating their homes. Then they skip medical appointments. Eventually, rent becomes impossible to pay. This slow squeeze is why housing affordability is now one of the biggest threats to older Australians. When housing costs rise faster than retirement income, the outcome is predictable and devastating. And this is only the first domino in a much larger crisis. If this reality surprised you, don't stay silent. Drop a comment sharing what shocked you most, and support our work by subscribing. It's just one click, but it means everything to us.
Number 2. Seniors are being pushed out of the rental market. Australia's rental market has become hostile to older Australians, and not because they're bad tenants. In fact, seniors are often reliable, quiet, and long-term renters. The problem is that today's rental system is built to favor speed and profit, not stability. Landlords increasingly prefer higher-income tenants, dual-income households, or short-term renters who can pay more. As competition intensifies, seniors on fixed incomes are quietly pushed to the back of the line, regardless of their rental history or reliability. What makes this situation even more dangerous is the lack of long-term security. Many seniors are stuck on short leases that can be ended with little notice. Every lease renewal becomes a moment of fear. Will the rent jump again? Will the owner sell? Will a younger tenant outbid them? For an older person, moving isn't just inconvenient, it's physically exhausting, emotionally distressing, and often expensive. Research shows that frequent forced moves increase stress, worsen health outcomes, and accelerate financial decline among older renters. This pressure creates a cruel cycle. Seniors accept smaller, poorer quality housing just to stay housed. They move further away from doctors, family, and support networks. Some hide maintenance issues out of fear of eviction. Others tolerate unsafe living conditions because they know they have no alternatives. Eventually, even these compromises stop working. When the rental market no longer has space for older Australians, homelessness doesn't arrive suddenly, it creeps in quietly. And once a senior loses their place in the rental system, getting back in becomes nearly impossible. Have you or someone you know faced this situation? Tell your story below and subscribe to the channel to help us keep exposing issues that matter.
Number 3. Public housing is failing older Australians. For seniors facing housing stress, public and social housing is often described as the last safety net. But for many older Australians, that net has massive holes. Waiting lists for public housing stretch for years, sometimes a decade or more, especially in major cities. Seniors who apply are often told they qualify, but qualification doesn't mean access. While they wait, rents continue to rise, savings continue to fall, and the risk of homelessness grows closer with every passing month. The deeper issue is that Australia's supply of public and social housing has not kept pace with demand. Over time, investment has failed to match population growth, longer life expectancy, and the increasing number of seniors who rent rather than own. Research consistently shows that older Australians are now one of the fastest growing groups seeking housing assistance. Yet, construction of age-appropriate, affordable housing remains painfully slow. Many properties are unsuitable for aging bodies, lacking accessibility features that seniors need to live safely and independently. What's most troubling is what happens during the waiting period. Seniors are often forced to survive in unstable or unsafe housing while they wait for help that may never come in time. Some exhaust their savings paying market rent. Others move into overcrowded homes, temporary arrangements, or unsafe dwellings just to avoid sleeping rough. This limbo takes a serious toll on mental and physical health, increasing hospital visits and accelerating decline. Public housing is supposed to prevent homelessness, not arrive after it happens. But for too many seniors, help comes too late, and once they fall through this gap, escaping it becomes incredibly difficult. Does this feel fair to you? We want to know. Leave your thoughts in the comments and support our hard work by subscribing. One click helps more than you think.
Number 4. Superannuation was never built for renters. Australia's superannuation system is often praised as a success story, but there's a critical flaw that rarely gets discussed. It was designed around one major assumption, that most people would retire owning their home outright. For homeowners, super can act as a supplement to the pension, but for lifelong renters, superannuation has to do everything, cover rent, food, healthcare, and emergencies. And in today's housing market, that simply isn't enough. The numbers tell a harsh story. Even a modest rent can drain super balances at an alarming speed. What looks like a healthy retirement fund on paper can disappear within a few years once monthly rent is deducted. Unlike mortgage holders who eventually pay off their homes, renters face never-ending housing costs for the rest of their lives. Research shows that retirees who rent are far more likely to fall into poverty compared to homeowners, even if they had similar earnings during their working years. The most dangerous part is how this problem is invisible during working life. Younger Australians are encouraged to focus on growing their super, yet few are told how devastating renting in retirement can be. Many seniors only realize the gap once they stop working and see how quickly their savings shrink. By then, it's too late to rebuild wealth or change their situation. Superannuation was meant to provide dignity and security in old age, but for renters, it often becomes a countdown clock. When the money runs out, housing stability disappears with it. If this made you rethink retirement planning, speak up. Comment your perspective and subscribe to support the time and research we put into these videos. Number 5. Health costs are quietly destroying housing security. As Australians age, health expenses don't just increase, they compound. Medications, specialist visits, mobility aids, and ongoing treatments slowly eat away at retirement income. While Medicare provides important support, it does not cover everything, and the gaps are often paid directly out of seniors' pockets. For retirees already spending a large share of their income on rent, these health costs become the tipping point that turns financial strain into a full-blown crisis. What many people don't realize is how closely health and housing are connected. Research consistently shows that housing stress worsens physical and mental health, leading to more medical needs. At the same time, rising medical expenses reduce the money available for housing. Seniors may delay filling prescriptions, skip appointments, or choose cheaper but unsuitable housing just to stay afloat. Over time, this creates a downward spiral where declining health leads to higher costs, which then further destabilize housing security. The most tragic part is how unavoidable this is. Getting older isn't a choice, and neither are many health conditions. Yet the system treats these costs as personal problems rather than predictable realities of aging. Seniors often dip into their savings to manage medical needs, believing it's temporary. But once those savings are gone, there's no buffer left. A single hospital stay or new diagnosis can be enough to push rent out of reach. In this way, health costs don't just threaten well-being, they quietly strip away the ability to remain housed, turning illness into a pathway toward homelessness. This is where silence becomes dangerous. Share your reaction in the comments and subscribe. It's a small action that helps us keep making videos like this.
Number 6. Aged care costs force seniors to lose their homes. For many older Australians, the family home is more than an asset. It's security, stability, and identity. But once aged care enters the picture, that security is often stripped away. Residential aged care and in-home support come with high and ongoing costs, and the system is structured in a way that frequently forces seniors to sell their homes to pay for care. Even those who planned carefully can find themselves trapped between needing support and losing the very thing that anchors their life. The problem is that aged care funding assumes housing wealth is readily available and fair to access. In reality, selling a home is not a simple financial transaction for an older person. It often happens under pressure, during declining health, and with limited choices. Once the home is sold, the proceeds are quickly absorbed by care fees, accommodation payments, and living expenses. Research shows that many seniors exhaust these funds far faster than expected, leaving them with no property, shrinking savings, and limited options if their care needs change. What's rarely discussed is what happens next. If a senior leaves aged care, outlives their savings, or needs to move to a different arrangement, they often can't re-enter the housing market. Prices have risen beyond reach, and rental options are scarce. The home sale becomes irreversible even if circumstances improve. This creates enormous emotional distress and a sense of loss that goes beyond money. A system meant to support dignity in aging instead pushes many seniors into long-term housing insecurity. When care comes at the cost of a home, it stops being support. It becomes a silent eviction. Should anyone have to lose their home to get care? Let us know below and support our channel with a quick subscribe. Just one click. Number 7. Renters have almost no long-term protection. For older Australians who rent, housing security often depends on short-term contracts and fragile promises. Unlike homeowners, renters have no guarantee they can stay long-term, even if they've lived in the same place for years. Lease agreements are commonly limited to 6 or 12 months, and once that period ends, rent can rise sharply or the tenancy can be terminated. For seniors on fixed incomes, this lack of stability creates constant anxiety and makes long-term planning nearly impossible. The absence of strong rent protections hits seniors harder than any other group. Moving house in older age isn't just stressful, it can be physically dangerous and financially draining.
Packing, transporting belongings, and adjusting to a new environment can worsen health conditions and disrupt access to doctors, pharmacies, and community support. Research shows that forced moves increase the risk of depression, hospitalization, and social isolation among older renters. Yet current policies offer little recognition of these risks. What's most concerning is that this insecurity is policy-driven, not inevitable. Other countries provide long-term leases, rent stability, and special protections for older tenants, recognizing housing as a foundation for health and dignity. In Australia, renters are largely treated the same regardless of age or vulnerability. This leaves seniors exposed to sudden displacement with nowhere affordable to go. When long-term protection is missing, stability becomes temporary by design. And for seniors, temporary housing isn't just inconvenient, it's a pathway toward homelessness. Housing security shouldn't disappear with age. Comment if you agree, and subscribe to help us continue shining light on these issues.
Number 8. The cost of living crisis hits seniors hardest. Rising living costs affect everyone, but for Australian seniors, the impact is far more severe. Most retirees live on fixed incomes that don't adjust quickly to inflation. When the price of electricity, groceries, insurance, and transport rises, there's no extra money coming in to absorb the shock. Each increase forces difficult trade-offs. What starts as small adjustments slowly turns into ongoing sacrifice, where essentials compete against each other for survival. Energy costs are a clear example. Seniors often spend more time at home and have greater need for heating or cooling due to health conditions. When power bills spike, many respond by limiting usage, even during extreme weather. Food prices tell a similar story. Seniors shift to cheaper, lower-quality options or skip meals entirely. Research consistently links these coping strategies to declining health, increased hospital visits, and faster financial exhaustion. Inflation doesn't just raise prices, it reduces quality of life in quiet but powerful ways. Over time, these pressures spill directly into housing insecurity. Money that once covered rent now goes toward utilities or food. Savings meant as a buffer are drained to manage everyday costs. Once those reserves disappear, even a modest rent increase becomes unmanageable. The cost of living crisis doesn't push seniors out of their homes all at once. It wears them down gradually, stripping away choices until there are none left. And because this process happens slowly, it often goes unnoticed until a senior suddenly has nowhere left to live. Rising costs affect us all, but not equally. Tell us how this impacts you, and subscribe to support the effort behind these deep dive videos.
Number 9. Government policy protects investors, not seniors. Australia's housing system didn't break by accident. It was shaped by policy choices. For decades, government decisions have favored property investors and market growth over housing security. Tax incentives, concessions, and planning rules have encouraged speculation, driving prices higher and making housing less affordable for those on fixed incomes. Seniors, especially renters, have been left exposed in a system designed to reward wealth accumulation rather than provide stability. The problem is not just what governments do, but what they fail to do. There are no strong nationwide strategies focused on keeping older Australians housed long-term. Support programs are often fragmented, underfunded, or temporary. While billions flow into incentives that inflate property values, only limited resources are directed toward affordable, age-appropriate housing. Research shows that when housing policy prioritizes investment returns, vulnerable groups are pushed aside, and seniors are among the first to feel the pressure. This imbalance creates a dangerous future. Policies that boost investor profits today translate into higher rents and fewer options tomorrow. Seniors who spent their working lives contributing to the economy now find themselves competing in a market they were never meant to win. The housing crisis facing older Australians is not a personal failure or a demographic accident. It is the predictable outcome of choices made at the top. And until policy priorities shift from profit to protection, more seniors will continue to lose the one thing they need most:
a secure place to live. Do you think the system is working or failing? Share your honest opinion below and subscribe to help this message reach more people.
Number 10. Senior homelessness is largely invisible. When people think of homelessness, they rarely picture older Australians, and that's exactly why this crisis is so dangerous. Senior homelessness is often hidden from view, happening behind closed doors rather than on the streets. Many older people move between friends' couches, sleep in cars, or stay in unsafe and overcrowded housing. They avoid shelters out of fear, shame, or physical limitations. As a result, their homelessness goes largely uncounted and unaddressed. Older Australians are also less likely to ask for help. Pride, stigma, and a lifetime of self-reliance keep many seniors silent, even as their situation becomes desperate. Research shows that seniors experiencing homelessness often endure it longer than younger people before seeking assistance. By the time support services become involved, health has usually declined, savings are gone, and recovery is far more difficult. This silence allows the problem to grow without public attention or political urgency. The invisibility of senior homelessness makes it easier for governments to ignore. If the crisis isn't visible, it isn't treated as an emergency. But behind the statistics are real people who worked, raised families, and contributed to society, now living without stability or dignity. Until senior homelessness is recognized, measured, and spoken about openly, it will continue to expand in the shadows. And by the time it becomes impossible to ignore, millions more may already have lost their homes.
What you've heard today isn't just a collection of problems, it's a pattern. Rising housing costs, weak protections, shrinking safety nets, and policy choices that prioritize profit over people are converging into one unavoidable outcome: more Australian seniors losing their homes. This crisis didn't appear overnight, and it won't fix itself. It's the result of long-term decisions that ignored a simple truth: aging is predictable, but insecurity should not be. What makes this situation especially confronting is how ordinary the people affected are. These are not extreme cases or rare stories. They are retirees who worked, paid taxes, raised families, and trusted that the system would support them in later life. Instead, many are discovering that stability in old age now depends on luck rather than fairness. And once housing is lost, the consequences ripple outward, damaging health, dignity, and community connection. This is not just a seniors issue, it's a future issue. Today's older Australians are showing us what happens when housing, income, and care systems fall out of balance. If nothing changes, this will not stop with one generation. The same pressures are already building for those still working today, especially renters. The warning signs are clear. The question is whether we choose to listen now or only after the damage is done. Before you go, don't just watch this video, respond to it. Share your thoughts below, or tell us what worries you most about aging and housing in Australia. If this video helped you see the issue more clearly, please support our work. We put a great deal of time and research into making these videos. Subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, and it helps us keep these conversations alive.